Hi, I'm Madison and welcome back to my channel. Today I have some Kindle Unlimited romance book recommendations for you. So I've got 5 book recommendations for you today. This is the third in my KU book recommendation series, so if you have not checked out part 1 and part 2, you can if you would like to, or just stick around and watch this. So we're actually going to kick this off with a book that recently came out, and that is Forbidden Hearts by Corinne Michaels. This is the first book in her brand new Whitlock family series. It's a small town romance. You're following Asher and Phoebe. Now there's a 14-year age gap between Asher and Phoebe. Phoebe is like 24 years old. She's currently getting her master's degree at college, and so when she comes back home, she's obviously free for the summer, and she ends up finding out that one of the dads in her town is in need of a nanny, and she is asked to be his nanny for the summer because one, his daughter is deaf and Phoebe is studying ASL and knows it fluently, and also because this guy actually works for her dad. And so Asher reluctantly hires Phoebe because he needs someone who does know ASL, and the current nanny agency doesn't have anyone on staff. And so he agrees to take Phoebe on like a trial run basis to see if it works out, which is hilarious because on the very first day where she's nannying for him, she ends up actually getting Phoebe to school she gets her to school at the right time, but ends up picking her up super late or something like that because she can't figure out how to get into the school and where the pickup line is, and so it's a whole thing, and he's like, really? He's like, come on. And it's absolutely hilarious. They are so adorable together. So this is a small town age gap nanny romance, which is actually a theme you're actually gonna realize here in a second. But I love this. This is also one of Corinne Michaels' spiciest books that she's written yet, which says a lot, which I had so much fun reading. It was such a good time. Then we have Black Ties and White Lies by Kat Singleton. This follows Beckham and Margot. This, right off the bat, was an amazing romance. I knew I was going to love this the second I picked it up, because the very first chapter features Margot. She's working at her cybersecurity company, and she ends up finding she's getting called into the CEO's office. The company was just recently purchased by someone, and the CEO wants to see her, and she's like, oh, did I do something wrong? This is really weird. So she goes to go to this meeting, walks in, and lo and behold, the CEO is actually her ex-boyfriend's older brother. And she's like, Beckham, what the actual F? Why did you buy you're the CEO of my company, why did you do this? And he goes, well, you weren't picking up your phone, so I didn't know how to get into contact with you, so I thought if I bought the company and set up a meeting, we could chat. And she goes, I wasn't picking up your phone call because I thought you were calling about your brother, my ex, and he was a cheating asshole, so why would I have picked up your phone calls? And he goes, why would I have called you to talk about my brother? Because him and his brother don't get along at all. They're super enemies. Anyway, she's like, okay, so what did you want to talk about? And he ends up telling her that recently there was an article that ran calling him a playboy, and so the board of his company is kind of threatening him, and so he wants to get into a relationship, a fake relationship, so that the board will get off his back and see that he is, committed to the company and doesn't have any of these issues. And so he ends up propositioning Margot to be this fake fiance, and she's like, why would you pick me? And he was like, it just seemed like the best option. She's like, kind of weird, but agrees to do it because he offers to pay her a crap ton of money that she really needs, but they have to play the long game with this. They can't just randomly announce it. It won't seem real. So what ends up happening is he ends up actually hiring her as his assistant, and they start a whole ploy of her working for him, them falling in love, then getting in a fake relationship, then getting fake engaged, and a whole thing. It's a long months long stint that they go through in this, and it was actually so much fun. There's also forced proximity. He's also so fucking rich. This man is billionaire with a capital B, which I know is how it's normally spelled, but I'm a capital B. He literally first off takes her to a department store and gets a private person to buy her clothes, and she tries all these expensive clothes on. He goes to go fly somewhere, and she's like, oh, okay, we'll just take a flight. And he goes, you're flying my private jet. And she goes, why? I don't need to be in a private jet. I can take a regular airplane. He goes, my fiance would never fly, coach. And she's like, okay. And just all these other things, he does all the typical billionaire stuff. If you love the billionaire romance trope and you have not read this, you need to, because it is billionaire romance, to the max with the amount of shit that this man pulls. It was so much fun. It was so good, and I really, really loved it. So if you like fake relationship billionaires, definitely check this out. Then we have my fantasy book, and that is going to be City of Thorns by C. N. Crawford. So this is an urban paranormal, urban fantasy series, basically set on Earth, in our regular world, except for the fact that there are these things known as demon cities that exist. So they're kind of like these gated cities that are like massive, and humans can't actually enter these places unless you are either super rich and attend the academy there and like learn witchcraft, or that's it. That's actually the only way you can enter as a human. Otherwise you have to be a demon. Now, Rowan, her mum was murdered a couple of years ago, and the person who murdered her mum was a demon, but she has no proof of this. So she really wants to go into the city of Thorns. That's the city, the demon city closest to her, so she can track down this demon. The problem is that she can't get in and she doesn't have the money to be a student for witchcraft there. What ends up happening, it's her birthday, Rowan's at the bar, and lo and behold, the Lord of Chaos, one of the top most dangerous demon, comes in and kidnaps her. And what happens is that he thinks that she's this woman known as ᴛᴛᴏ. And ᴛᴛᴏ is this very infamous succubus in the city of Thorns. And it turns out that, you know, Rowan is actually her human doppelganger. The Lord of Chaos, he wants to get revenge on ᴛᴛᴏ and these other people, and Rowan wants to stay in the city of Thorns so she can track down her mum's killer. So Rowan ends up presenting him with a deal. And the deal is that she will pretend to be ᴛᴛᴏ and help him track down everyone else that he's trying to get revenge on, and in return she gets to remain in the city of Thorns and track down her mum's killer. And so they agreed to that, and it was so much fun. If you really enjoyed the whole like Court of Nightmares vibe from the ACOTAR series, definitely pick this up, because while she's pretending to be ᴛᴛᴏ, pretending to be this like really powerful like sexy succubus, it's giving like Feyre and the Court of Nightmares vibes, and I was living for it. It was so much fun. I just also love succubi. They're like my favorite creatures to ever read about, which is what you get in this. And the magic system and everything in this was really easy to understand. It was really fun. Super short as well. It's a 3-book series. It's all on KU. And so I highly recommend for my fantasy romance girlies. Next we have Mother's Day In by Lee Jacquot. So you're following Olivia. She's a single mom, she's got a daughter, and it's about to be Mother's Day weekend, and she's celebrating it by going to this like weekend retreat in her town to kind of like have a full-on spa day. It turns out that this inn that she's going to for the weekend is actually owned by her daughter's ex-lifeguard, and his name is Theo, and there's a 20-year age gap between them. And so Olivia and Theo have known each other for a couple of years now, but he quit being a lifeguard a year ago, so she hasn't seen him since then. And so this is their first time crossing paths in a year, and this is her and him, you know, finally enacting on this like mutual chemistry that they've always had, and having this like whirlwind weekend that turns into something more. And it was so amazing. I really don't want to give anything else away because, like I said, it is like only 100 pages, so that's all I'm going to say about it. But when I say this book was so hot, so delicious, so good, like I'm not even kidding you, like it was so amazing. And each of the Holy Night novella books has a different kink that it focuses on, and for Mother's Day In, the kink that it focuses on here is the breeding kink, but it's not the breeding kink in like a creepy monster seed way, but like in a more like chill breeding kink vibe. Like I liked the breeding kink in this one, and normally it's like one of my least favorite kinks to read about because it's just not my kind of cup of tea, but I liked it in this one. Like this was a good breeding kink, so even if you think that you don't like that, still check it out because it could surprise you. Even if you have read this one or you haven't, like definitely check them all out. Like they're all on KU too, and they're such great palette cleansers. Like when you're in between books and need something else to pick up, I always recommend her books. And then last but not least, we have my most recent 5-star read, and that is Runaway Love by Melanie Harlow. This is a single dad nanny romance in a small town. I know. So in this you're following Veronica and you're following Austin. Now Veronica, Ronnie, when this book starts off, is about to get married. She's literally 4 hours away from walking down the altar. 4 hours before walking down the altar though, she gets a text message from her fiance saying, "Vanessa had such a great night with you last night," and then sends a dick pic. And she goes, 1, my name is Veronica, not Vanessa. 2, I didn't see him last night. 3, oh my god, he's cheating on me with his secretary. And so it turns out that her fiance has been cheating on her for like years now, and she never knew about it. And so she decides she's not going to get married to him. So she, you know, walks down to the altar, says no, and then runs away. The only problem is that her apartment was under her fiance's name, her credit cards were under her fiance, her phone was under her fiance, her car, her money, I say like everything. Like she doesn't have a penny to her name because her fiance controlled everything. So she's like, oh my god, what do I do now? Like I literally have no options left. And while she's in this small town that she was supposed to get married at, she ends up finding out that there's a single dad looking for a nanny for the summer. And she's like, perfect, I can make some quick money for the summer, try and get my feet back on the ground, figure my shit out. So she applies to be this nanny, and she turns up at his house in her wedding dress, and he's like, what the actual F? I'm not hiring you. This is crazy. You also have no qualifications. And she doesn't. She has literally no qualifications for this. However, she ends up still needing a place to stay, so he ends up letting her like crash at his place for the night because while she tries to figure everything out. and they end up kissing and having like a lot of chemistry, and he kind of starts to feel bad for her. So he ends up agreeing like on a trial basis to like let her nanny for the summer. But they're like, we can't kiss again, like we gotta put boundaries down, like we're both attracted to one another, but like this can't happen. And so from the very beginning, they have this crazy sexual chemistry and they both are attracted to one another, but obviously like he doesn't want to act on it, so she can't act on it. And so it's just building and building and building, and it was so much fun. It was so good. It was also so hilarious. Like Melanie Harlow, I like to call her books like small town rom-coms because they're always so funny and like the best things happen in them. And the spice is always like, Melanie Harlow writes some of the best scenes with sexual tension that you will ever read in your life. That's the one thing that I've always realized about her. She builds these scenes up and it's like a blue ball every single time. It's so good. It's amazing. But I really, really love this romance. If you have not checked it out, you absolutely must. And yeah, those are my 5 new KU romance book recommendations. Please let me know down below what one of your favorite books on KU is, and maybe I will check it out. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please like them down below. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel and check me out over on TikTok and Instagram. And until next time, thanks so much everyone. Bye-bye.